And we're back with another lesson. Today we're looking at dramatic irony. Now this is quite a short lesson and it's quite a short scene, but it's a really important concept that I want you to fully understand so that you have the opportunity to talk about it if it comes up on your exam. So we're going to have a look at Act 1, Scene 6. And this is an act that mainly occurs between King Duncan and Lady Macbeth when Duncan arrives at the castle. And I want to talk to you about what dramatic irony is and why it's effective in this particular scene. So, first question is, what is dramatic irony? And that's incredibly important. So, it's basically an opportunity for us to look at a scene and have more knowledge than the characters that are in the scene. So that sounds a bit strange, but as an audience, we know more about what's going on than at least one of the characters that is on stage at that time. So it can be really useful for lots of different effects. It can be used for humour, but it can also be used for tension because we know what a character might be intending, even though the characters in the scene don't understand that. And when we're thinking about a play like Macbeth, where we have a lot of ideas about deception and what the appearance of something is compared to what the reality of it is, sometimes as an audience, when we understand the difference, it can ramp up that tension because we worry for the characters that don't know what's actually going on. So we need to think about what the intention of Shakespeare is in this scene and what effect that irony has on the audience. That's really important. And it also shows that you fully understand what Shakespeare's trying to do and what effect that has on us when we watch it. And that's a very powerful thing to put in an essay. It shows an examiner that you really know what's going on with this play. So always think about these different techniques and what a writer's trying to do when they introduce these techniques deliberately. So let's have a look. Dramatic irony in Act 1, Scene 6. So King Duncan's arrived at Macbeth's castle. He's greeted by Lady Macbeth, and she does this thing where she plays this role of a typical Jacobean woman. And we talked about this in the last video. There are three sides to Lady Macbeth, and this is the one that people would expect. Now, it's important structurally because we already know that she's dark and mad and manipulative and ambitious, but that's not what women were supposed to be in those times. So in this scene, although we know those things about her, the thing that she outwardly shows is her being a typical Jacobean woman, a perfect hostess, if you like, someone who cares and is loyal to the king and all those different ideas. And that dramatic irony arrives because we know what she's intending to do, but what she's showing King Duncan is something completely different. Of course it is. And that tension arises from that dramatic irony that we know what her intentions are, but Duncan does not know what they are. So we have this wonderful interchange between these two characters where everybody acts as they should do. Duncan uses these great lines such as "our honoured hostess," where he talks about Lady Macbeth being an excellent hostess, and "how you shall bid God yield us for your pains," being really gracious and humble and saying, you've done a wonderful job in welcoming us into your home and you're an excellent hostess and you've gone to a lot of trouble. And Lady Macbeth returns this by saying the things that you would expect her to say to a king. "All our service in every point twice done and then done double," and she goes on and on talking about how it's no trouble at all and it could never be too much trouble for the king and all these things that are the right things to say, but we know she doesn't really mean. And that interchange between the two of them is very significant in that they both play their roles perfectly, but we know that Lady Macbeth isn't sincere in hers. She's being false. She's the actual opposite of what she appears to be. This affects the tone and the mood quite dramatically because although we have Duncan enter at the beginning before Lady Macbeth appears, and he talks about how wonderful the air of the castle is and what a pleasant place it is, and he talks about a bird nesting in the castle walls even though it's difficult for it to do so, and that shows that the castle is a good place, a pleasant place. So he sets that up as being this great place, but we know it's not. We know it's the place where he's going to die. And that links to the idea of deception and appearance versus reality. It also links to the ideas about Duncan himself. So we know that Duncan fits what we expect of a really good king. And it builds on that idea that Duncan doesn't deserve to die. And it's important that we know he doesn't deserve to die. And it's not God intervening to kill a bad king because he's an excellent king. If anything, it just means that he's too trusting. And this shows again that he still can't see the danger when it's clearly right there. And that's what ultimately leads to his downfall. But Lady Macbeth reinforces the idea of it being a wonderful place by playing the part of a good hostess, even though she's actually planning to kill him. So that deception links to that dramatic irony. We know what she's really like more than anybody else, more than Macbeth even knows. We know how dark she is. And also, we know she intends to kill the king. And yet, Shakespeare sets up this scene where both of them play the part of a pleasant place and a pleasant hostess and a pleasant king and all these things being fine. So that really does affect the tone and the mood, because it's quite unnerving to see that scene but know underneath the surface what the darkness of it is. And you can think about the way that maybe they would show that in stagecraft, maybe with lighting, maybe with costume or gestures. That's something that's well worth talking about here. So as promised, this is quite a short video. This is really all we need to know about the dramatic irony in this scene, but it's really important that you know what dramatic irony is. It's really important that you know which quotes show Duncan is a good king, establishes him as being a good king, and then also how Lady Macbeth shows her false side that conforms to what people would expect of a woman in those times. If you understand those three things and you can summarise those three things for me, using quotes where appropriate, you should be able to answer this one big question at the end. So have a go at summarising those things, but then also have a go at answering this question. So your big question for this lesson is, what's the effect of dramatic irony on this scene? So tone and mood are really important. Think about the way that it appears to be really pleasant, but we know that it's not, and that's dramatic irony, the fact that we know that it's not. Think about deception and appearance versus reality. Think about those two themes and how you can link it to those. And also think about what a massive crime killing the king is in this time. I mean, it's a huge crime now, but think about how the Great Chain of Being plays a part in demonstrating how it's a crime against nature. So that deception goes beyond just killing the king in terms of it being a harsh murder, but also the idea that they can break nature by doing this as well. So there's a lot riding on this, and that tension can be a lot bigger because of the gravity of the crime that they're about to commit. So think about all those things. What's the effect of the dramatic irony? Put as much in it as you can. Remember, you're showing an examiner you understand these different concepts, so that's what's important. All right, so that's that for today, and then we've got a couple of bits left to cover before we finish Act 1, so that'll be our next video in the series after this, and I will see you then.